Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 25th episode of second season of Coffee with Ashish. In fact, this is also our 75th episode in general because you remember in season one we had 50 episodes. So it's a very special episode for all of us at Coffee with Ashish, and we are so honored and privileged to have a equally fitting special guest with us on this special occasion, Megha Mittal. Megha is an entrepreneur, explorer, learner, mother, musician, and artist wearing multiple hats. She comes from business and music, the culmination of both arts. Her work ranges from consulting experience at McKinsey to leading sales ops at Booking.com. She was also the chairperson of the supervisory board at the Forward Incubator. Megha is currently building multiple brands, Ela Home, which is a home goods brand, and Back to Your Roots, an advisory brand that focuses on tourism and travel sector. She's also currently working on her art, which will be available in the form of exciting products at the end of the current year. And she's also seeking potential partnerships with various art galleries. Megha is also a face of many career-driven mothers who have been able to build a successful career next to managing a young family. And today's chat with her is going to circle around various topics ranging from travel to even learnings to women in leadership and how they have managed both their personal life and their corporate careers. So with this, a very warm welcome to you, Megha, on Coffee with Ashish. We are so honored to have you with us. And I'm going to request Ashish to welcome you and take forward the conversation with you while we all enjoy our coffee as well.
Thank you for your kind words, Karthik.
Yeah, and welcome, Megha. I mean, 75th episode and all that. And I do have a tilt towards anybody coming in from Dehradun or Mussoorie. So, I'm pretty happy to have you on this particular episode.
Congratulations. You guys have been doing an amazing job. I've seen a few chats before, some of my ex-colleagues from McKinsey. So well done on the different perspectives that you're bringing through these chats.
Right. So Dehradun aside, which of course like I said, we share a little tilt there in terms of my own boarding house experience in Missouri, and you're coming in from Dehradun, you come from a business family, as Karthik mentioned. So how does it impact your overall thinking while you were coming out of there, and then later on to move into musician? By the way, my own son, who's sitting around here, is a musician himself. He's 25-year-old and lead guitarist and composer.
Fantastic. Yeah, Dehradun is, as you know, a fairly simple and humble city, right? It's when we were growing up, there was not much to do, frankly speaking. Now I think there's a lot more to do, still not as much as in Delhi. But that helped to put a lot of focus on what I was doing. So it was very interesting. We were mostly busy with schooling and music. Both me and my sister. It was quite an exciting journey. I think music is so important for anyone. So I think as parents, it's very critical to expose kids to different areas and genres. And for me, music was almost meditative. It was something that I could escape to every time, but also I always have a bias towards wired instruments. Probably your son can tell you that. But I think wired instruments have an ability to really pierce through your soul and purify it and help you meditate in ways that you didn't think. I was a shy child, but it helped to do concerts. So it really put me out on the stage and build a lot of confidence, which kind of helps going forward in the future. And it was quite interesting because I was combining that with the background that I was growing up in with the business family. So a lot of times dinner conversations used to be about how to solve supplier problems, who is the right person to be sent to one supplier or the other, what product issues, what are the customers asking us. So it's quite amazing to be part of these conversations without knowing it, because it builds fundamentals of business. And quite frankly, for me, the passion for business, fundamentals and just creating things just comes from having that background. But yeah, I do miss Dehradun very deeply. I've not been there for many years now. I cannot wait to get there and meet all my friends back in Doon. What a humble city, what a simple city. And I just love still interacting with people from Doon. So my son has a teacher, a Hindi teacher, and I just went back to Dehradun to ask people who could teach him. So
Right.
I try to work with people from Doon as much as possible.
Right. So let's talk about the global fundamentals of tourism then. Yeah. why is it important to us humans? And you obviously come from a background of lodging and experiences, etc., all put together. So what would your thoughts be in those directions?
Yeah, I think tourism is such an interesting industry. I think all of us who have travel bug, as I call it, we love it. We do have a fundamental need to explore as humans, isn't it? Just traveling around, understanding different cultures and perspectives. What's happening in tourism is very interesting, and we are a lot more global than we used to be. At the same time, we are a lot more local. So if you think about tourism is almost like a 9 trillion economy if you think
Yeah.
of tourism receipts, and US so far has been at the highest. They do about a 1.8 trillion, and then China is next about 1.6, and India is about 10th number, 200 billion in tourism receipts. What's interesting with COVID is that we do think there will be a turn of events where China might actually be able to take over as a top tourism sector economy more than US. But what's also interesting is the domestic tourism increase. So it could be that there is a lot more increase in spending within the countries, even beyond COVID. Of course, COVID, that was the case, but beyond COVID as well.
Yeah, to that extent, perhaps it's good to be in a market like India, which has its own domestic spend and a
Yes.
huge domestic market and territory to be able to cover. So I do take it that COVID would have taught us, or at least put us in a direction where internal travel to India would be built on a better foundation than it was before, of course. But talking about the bug of tourism, and let me just relate that I've been now 42, come August now, I'll be about 42 years in this travel industry. And for the first 10 years, believe me, I wanted to leave every day. And I said, I want to get into something else, but I guess I never got down to leaving it. And that's my little message for all aspirants, that if the bug does bite you, it could be a great career option. It could be a wonderful industry. But let's get back to the recovery pipeline, I think, and that's where everybody would be anxious to know from you. So what is the recovery pipeline you see, the customer sentiments, the package sector especially, and the global tour operator? And well, who took the Thomas Cook cake?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, interesting that you ask. What we're seeing a lot now is dependency on the vaccination. So we are seeing countries that are that have better infrastructure to vaccinate, and the speed is fairly good. We do see customer sentiment rising. So if you look at, I cover mostly US and Europe, less APAC area. US customers have been ready already for a year. Every survey we have done, we've seen customer sentiment pretty high on travel. People have just been waiting for countries to open up. So we are seeing a pickup in US and UK in terms of bookings. I have to say most hospitality players as well as retailers actually have done a great job of adhering to or adapting to COVID. So I think hotels have done very well also, especially I come from a tourism economy here in Netherlands. So there is quite a lot of uptick. It's a bit interesting because it's going to be more domestic first, more short-term rentals, less hotels. That's basically what we see right now. But if we talk of tour sector, it's mostly European focused. So we're quite big on packages traditionally. Um, but then the interesting part is after Thomas Cook, we have one big player, which is TUI, and then we have an upcoming German player, which is called Der Touristik,
Yeah.
that is trying to take some share from TUI. At the same time, you have these players that are what we call virtual tour operators, such as On the Beach. And Expedia is in a way going through dynamic packaging phase. So if you look at Expedia, you can customer book an integrated trip on Expedia, which includes all your 5 categories of travel. And when I say 5 categories of travel, we talk about move, stay, eat, shop, and play categories. So those are the 5 basically what we do as customers. And with Expedia, except the shop category, you can basically book everything, which is effectively your virtual tour operator, compared to what we had before, very traditional tour operators. So it's quite interesting how it's moving. The tour operator industry itself is becoming more virtual. So you will see more and more players that are doing dynamic packaging.
Yeah. So when you talk about dynamic packaging and virtual, I'm reminded again by Thomas Cook's chairman, famous words when the company went down, said the world around us changed digitally. We didn't. And he confessed that Thomas Cook didn't adapt fast enough. So do you think, leaving aside Thomas Cook, COVID be it, do you think the world is adopting faster than it ever did before and would adapt faster than ever before?
Yeah, I think it's pushed us to reconsider, especially the traditional players. It's really pushed the players that were not thinking digitally to do that. And this example doesn't necessarily come from travel industry, but a very good example is for us. I worked with someone who's very much involved in the digitalization of the one of the main universities here in the Netherlands,
Right,
and he really said that. He said we had not been thinking about doing programs digitally. Now we have a program up and running in 6 months.
right.
So yes, absolutely. I think TUI is doing good job as well in looking into experiences, for example, through their amusement acquisition. But yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, we've all been pushed to more digital, adapting ourselves to more digital products than physical products.
Right, right. So, experiential and experience is kind of word which is very frequently used these days. Um, so, and with your experience, I mean, let's just talk about the overall landscape in this, whether it's Airbnb or Cloak or Get Your Guide, Toe Scanner for one. And what is it? 83% of it is still offline, or how does it work? So, what's the overall landscape you see, and going forward from here?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's first good to think about the five categories that I mentioned, what the share of those categories are. So if you look at move, which is basically either you're flying or driving,
Hmm,
as a customer, we spend roughly 33% of our travel budget on just getting to a place. Then we want to stay somewhere. We spend about 20% or 22%, depending on the country, on hotels or lodging or rental sector, short-term rentals. Then the eat category, food normally takes 25%. Maybe for us Indians, it takes a bit more.
yeah.
We love,
Yeah.
to explore with food. It's very much part of our culture. And then usually the experiences and the retail, which is shopping, takes about 10% of our wallet share each.
Right.
What's interesting with experiences, and if you look at the travel players overall, you do make most money in lodging at the moment.
Hmm,
So the commissions are highest in lodging sector. I think flights, you would probably know, Ashish, as well. It's fairly commoditized.
yeah.
The next is really experiences. So you're absolutely right, about 83% of experiences are still offline. They need to still come online. And players such as Get Your Guide and Klook, they're really trying to bring all these experiences, make them available to customers online. So there's a huge, I expect there is a huge translation from offline to online of these experiences that's going to happen. But it is not a high value product. Normally you would have about 30 euros of average order value. So I think it's kind of interesting to see how much volumes and which regions they can drive in, these players, but also what is going to happen down the line. Can they really sustain as just experiences player? I think for coming 5 years probably, but beyond that, what is going to happen?
Yeah, I don't see a great problem on the customer end side, but I see an issue on the supply side. I mean, even if you look at a country like India, if you look at the entire supply pipeline, whether it's entrances to monuments or whether it's activities, whether it's sightseeing, whether it's a shikara on the Dal Lake, you've got a whole supply which is unautomated. Even if you look at Indian railways, do you know only 10% of that supply is automated, which you can actually book online, be able to get online. For that 90% of inventory, you still have to line up on some platform to be able to book it. Perhaps you're lucky, you still have your Doon Shatabdi online. But that's not the same, it says, for many of the trains here. So I think globally, and not only India, the biggest challenge is going to be get the entire supply product, fragmented supply product online, to be able to have the customer in a seamless belt. And then, of course, on the customer perspective itself, the distribution is fairly fragmented. Again, coming back to India, you have an agent in Nagpur, perhaps, which is equally productive in terms of his holiday customers than somebody in Bombay. So, travel in India, as you know, is no more a Bombay, Delhi, Chennai situation. It's a situation which is spread all over there, 2, 3, 4 cities, including Dehradun. There you are.
Yeah,
So,
indeed. Dehradun is fairly touristic place, right? So it's Mussoorie, Dehradun. We have seen a lot of tourism there. You're absolutely right. It's very fragmented. The way I look at experiences now is what Booking was doing 15 years ago in
right,
2000, when 96 to 2000 period when Booking started. Who could have thought that hotels would get on the platform?
right.
Hotels are also very fragmented, and they're still very fragmented. A number of hotels. So the way I see experiences is that it will get more and more online, and it depends from country to country. I think there will always be countries, and I remember during my time at Booking that Latin America and Asia Pacific were still the most offline and growth areas for us, just simply because it's still fragmented and a lot of things happen offline. That's always going to be the case.
Yeah.
But globally, I think the phenomena, yeah, indeed, it's going to go more online.
Yeah. The other matter with the accommodation space, which you from Booking would know, is that they are left to be very transactional. You look for a hotel, you search for a hotel, you book a hotel, but there are many activities you still have to line up when you get to the hotel to be able to do it, which can be typically done offline, which could be done even before you enter the hotel, be it registration or be in booking for various facilities. I mean, if you look at the air, we talked about air being commodity. Why has air become commodity? If you really see it, is because the GDSs have made that happen in a uniform way in terms of distribution. But it hasn't happened in hotel because there are multiple companies who are doing it, multiple hotels are doing it. So I guess, Megha, you should be pretty glad to see, coming from a accommodation industry, that I think the next 5 years in the accommodation space is going to be pretty revolutionary in terms of automation, not only in putting the supply and demand onto the platform, but what else you can do with technology, right? Any thoughts before we move to the next one?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm very excited about the accommodation space, especially because of COVID, because a lot of us are now looking for less hotels, but more villa type properties. So we don't, customers didn't feel safe going to hotels, but more to villas. Even within that, there is so much innovation that we can do. We were just doing basic stuff when we were doing hotels, right? So most hotels, you go, you take a bed, you stay there,
Yeah,
you eat food, and then you go out. But there is a lot about experience in the whole industry that we are absolutely missing. I think experiences, as we call it, are not really experiences. They're just things to do. So
yeah,
are we really capturing customers' emotions to be able to provide the right experience? And I do suspect in the accommodations industry, there will be a lot more. If you think of the three categories that you have, which is your chains, and then the smaller 4 or 5 star, and then apartments, I think it's becoming more to other two spectrums where you have more apartment type properties and more luxurious villas, and people will equally explore that. So that's an inventory that still needs to come more than what just Airbnb has done in the market.
right, right. And you, of course, let's get down to the subject of women empowerment. You do, of course, spend a lot of time in terms of women in the travel industry, but I want to first get down to women traveler. And by that, I mean, I do believe that there is a huge segment out there. And I don't mean women who have reached a certain age and certainly have a lot of time to travel on their own, but even the millennials and the young ones, right? And that also begs me to move to another subject known as the millennium travel, right? We've got global brands like Contiki, Holidays, etc., which are meant for youngsters, let's put it this way. So what do you see a combination happening globally, both in terms of women travel and of course the solo travel and under 30s kind, and specifically, if you may address even India, because I don't see in India a very dominant brand to make youngsters feel, oh, this is I'm 28-year-old, I want to travel solo, and that's where I trust and do it in an end-to-end basis. I don't see that, right? Although I have this young friend of mine who started a brand known as Hostel in India, which about 46 properties, being able to get youth hostels, etc., moving to the younger audience. But I mean, I want to see a more larger captivity happening here. How do you react to all of this?
Yeah, and it's such a great point what you mentioned, Ashish. the reason why it doesn't happen is because the way we make decisions in companies, we're basically looking at who brings most value. And yeah, normally it's people who are more a higher segment of age segment.
Right.
And then we say, okay, that's where we want to put the product out there. What we do forget is that the younger generation is going to be our future customers. So whenever I build my teams or a product, I'm always looking at what younger generation wants, because they are going to carry that brand forward with them. I think there's absolutely scope, especially in India, for under 30. And I know the safety concerns sometimes of people, but the more and more I talk to customers and women around, they are looking to be free. They are looking for more independence. There is just very clear a wave of change that none of us can ignore, which is women just want more independence. And younger generations, thankfully, are a lot better at this than we were in our
Yeah.
younger generation. I think we were still very much obedient about things that were told to us. But younger generations are really questioning, and both men and women, I would say, are really questioning some of these lay foundations that we have laid in the past, both on climate as well as on their independence. But absolutely, I absolutely see a product in India where you can have under 30 women travelers. Why not? So as for globally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So again, staying again on the women aspect of it, let's look at employment in the travel industry. Before I get onto your views, a particular view I've always shared over the last 40 years, that you have many women who get into the industry, but there are not many women who finish out of the industry, because somewhere down the line, obviously, whether it's for matrimonial reasons or family reasons, they move away, right? And in the end, the elder age groups are more men, and with more and more women, of course, coming in, but not probably staying. The second point I make is that for the fact they don't stay in the industry long enough, I don't see them as perhaps as CEOs, as many CEOs as I would like to see. It's not that the younger, there are still some of your colleagues who've sort of moved out from McKinsey, moved in, and they're CEOs in the travel industry. But generally, people who have risen to the ranks to be moved into that direction. And of course, now this current phenomena of work from anywhere, right, work from home, would you see more women also coming back into the industry to say, what the hell, I'm based in, say again, back to Dehradun, I'm based in Dehradun, I can still work from, make my trip sitting from there, So what's your overall take on women in industry and leadership and moving away?
Yeah, well, I considered coming back to Dehradun and staying
Yeah,
with my parents for a year. And I've been building business in last 3 years virtually. So it's absolutely something that's doable. I think we're making three fundamental mistakes when we are thinking of how to have more women in the industry, but also in generally in the workforce. I think first mistake is that we are only focusing on hiring women, but not keeping them or retaining them. From my experience, the hardest time in my career, and I've been working for I think 16, 17 years now. I have two children. One is 5 years old, one is 2 years old. So my children are fairly young. I always say I have been longer a professional than I've been a mother. So out of the two jobs I've done, work in a career much more than I've been a mother. And the hardest time in my career has been when the kids are young. So it's very, very important that we support young mothers. It's just the first 5 years till the kids get to school that is the hardest time. As companies, we need to just clarify that our own priorities, that we are going to just support young mothers. They do bring a lot of value. I think the second, I do a lot of these conversations with people on why women, why, and especially if they're taking a break, are they still good for it? And I haven't yet met a mother that would not be fully focused and determined to give the best future to their kids. So when these mothers are coming back, they're mothers, they're not women anymore. They're not the usual girls that you would think of. They're all mothers that are coming back. And I think third mistake that we're doing, and I think Netherlands is doing better in that sense, more and more fathers in the playground for play dates would help. And I'm seeing from my son's class, it's the first time I said to my husband, I think it's better you go to the playground because there are four more fathers there. I think it's really good for you to mingle rather than me going there.
right.
So I think that's these three things we really need to fix. And for me, I have, like I said, I'm building the business virtually. That's my condition. That's my precondition. COVID has certainly helped me to gain more global clients. Companies are a lot more open on hiring the right talent in the right place, as opposed to be physically located with them, right? So that's, I think there's a lot of work to do when it comes to bringing women back in workforce. But so far, I haven't met a mother that is not dedicated to work. And I've personally become better after becoming a mother, for sure. I'm more organized, I'm more relaxed, I'm more efficient. So yeah, I think there's a complete win-win in this area, which we need to really capture on.
Yeah. And, with your own experience now of the US and European market, I want to talk to you a bit on the demographics of these two continents in terms of the packaging industry. Somehow, sitting from where I sit, we have always seen the Europe to be more dominant in terms of packaging, be it big brands like Thomas Cook or 2E, etc., versus the US brands in the holiday, where of course US has been very potentially large in terms of corporate travel market. You've seen the Carlson wagon leaves, you've seen the American Expresses come out of there. Tell me the difference. Are you able to put a difference between the two markets in terms of packaging and holidays? And do you think over the years they are merging as one, or they would merge as one, or they will remain America and Europe demographically?
Demographically, I think COVID has certainly made it America and Europe rather than having them merged. So it's become more localized rather than coming closer. Package market is indeed more Europe focused market. In US, we have a lot more of different things such as camping. So there's a huge RV market, for example. I don't see that changing too much anytime soon. I think there's more. What COVID has done is reinforce some of these type of trends that were already existing. So we don't really see necessarily any big movement in the package sector towards US at the moment. Yeah, package travel seems to be more European. And at the same time, if you see Expedia, that's what I said, there is going to be virtual tour operation. So maybe it's not about package market as we know it. It's not the pre-packaged market, but it's a dynamic package market that's going to be more important in the US. But this year we're going to do a huge survey as well of both customers, but also we are establishing more and more through our research. And it's one of our big projects this year on how the packages sector is going to evolve in the US and Europe.
Yeah.
And how this one integrated trip. So hopefully by the end of the year, we have a better understanding of what COVID has really done to these two markets.
Right. Although the US package market does remain very adventurous in terms of expeditions into Iceland and Alaska, then the European market. And of course, cruises being a very important aspect of the holiday industry. Is there anything else you want to add in terms of value to the audience in terms of the holiday space going forward, of what we should look at? What about the APEC? Although you haven't played, like you said, too much of attention to the APEC market, but what do you see in APEC? What do you see in Japan and so on?
Yeah,